Our discussion for today is on proteins. I'm sorry, I'm wrong, and what we are made of. And we are made of things called organic compounds. Organic compounds. Organic compounds are called organic. We have another word for organic compounds, that's polymers. Polymers. Organic compounds are called organic because they contain the elements carbon and hydrogen. Along with others, but mainly carbon and hydrogen. And organic compounds make up the basic building blocks of all living things. And we're going to look at why and how. Okay, now, the basic unit of a living thing is a cell. What makes up cells are organic compounds. This is a really important idea. Okay? The idea that we go from atom is the smallest unit of anything here to molecule, which is this thing I've circled, and that molecule is part of a larger unit called a compound when they're all put together, and compounds make up cells. Okay, special compounds. 4 special compounds. Now, we said they contain the elements carbon. Why carbon? Carbon has what we call, has 4 valence electrons and forms 4 very stable covalent bonds with other atoms. If we do a quick dot diagram of carbon, atom, 2 electrons in its innermost level, 4 on its outermost level. It wants to get 4 more. I'll draw those as X's. And when it does that, it forms 4 bonds, covalent bonds with other atoms. So it's uniquely able to form what we call a molecular backbone for living things. Okay? Because carbon will form essentially chains. Carbon will form chains, and if you can form chains, then you can form you. Just a very quick example of a chain, a carbon chain is your hair. Okay, so let's talk about the word polymer a minute. In general, a polymer is a chain of smaller compounds. Those smaller compounds are called monomers. Literally one thing, literally many things. In order to put a polymer together, polymers are put together in a process called dehydration synthesis. In dehydration synthesis, here's a monomer, here's another monomer. That monomer has a hydrogen atom on the end. This monomer has a hydroxyl group on the end. You peel those away to make, it's an H and an OH. That makes H2O, water. So you dehydrate it by taking the water away, and you join them together. It's called dehydration synthesis, which literally means water is removed to put them together. Again, feel free to pause if you need to. When you eat, you break down or digest organic compounds. This breakdown process is called hydrolysis because water is added to it to make it happen. So the opposite happens to split it up. So when you eat, and you'll see what we mean when we say eat organic compounds, that water, and it can be from your saliva, it can be from your stomach acid, it can be from a lot of places, it can be in your cells. You put water into the polymer to split it apart. Okay? Hydrolysis. There are 4 organic compounds we're going to talk about. I apologize that I didn't make this that up there clear right away. The first kind is protein. Protein is the basic building block of all living things. Okay, this is your basic building block. If you're going to, the basic thing that makes up an organism. Your hair is protein, your skin is protein, blood is protein, bones are calcium around protein fibers, muscle is protein. Proteins are chains. Chains of things called amino acids, and those are their molecular formulas, molecular and structural formulas are shown over here. Chains of things called amino acids. We have talked about amino acids in biology before. You can go to GNC and buy amino acids to eat. Okay? Sometimes we use protein for energy, but mainly they're used for building materials. Some examples of protein: insulin, which enables your cells to take up sugar. Keratin, which is the protein that's found in your hair. Collagen, which makes your skin nice and stretchy and springs back. Those are all examples of some protein. Second one is carbohydrate. You recognize carbohydrates because they usually come in a ring. You see carbo for carbon, hydrate for water. The general formula for a carbohydrate is this: C sub n, H sub 2n, O sub n. Okay, introducing a little algebra into our life here. So if you have a molecule that's C6H12O6, it's probably a carbohydrate. In fact, that one is glucose. Carbohydrates are used by the body mainly for energy. They are chains of things called mono, one, saccharide, sugar. This is one sugar molecule. If you put together a whole bunch of them, sorry, not drawing this very well, you have polysaccharide, carbohydrate. We will talk about carbohydrates in more detail later on in this class. We talk about carbohydrates like glycogen as a storage carbohydrate. Glucose is the best known monosaccharide. Some other examples of carbohydrates are starch, sugar, and lactose. Fructose and maltose are all different kinds of sugars. Third, fat or lipid. Fat is used mainly for energy, although in packets, it's stored in packets around the body for insulation and protection. You have fat behind your eyeballs, fat around your kidneys. One of the problems people have in starvation diets is their kidneys, when they're starving, not starvation diets, but they're starving, is that their kidneys start getting banged up and stuff, and they have a lot of kidney problems because they've lost their fat protection. It looks like their eyeballs sink back in their head because it's lost the fat behind it. But this guy here, this is a chest and a belly, has lots of stored energy right here because he's been eating more calories than he uses, and we'll talk about that later. Fat is a chain of what we call fatty acids. And then on this end of the chain is a molecule called glycerol. And we're going to look at these a little bit later with our little card game, condensation rummy we play. But you see that this is a whole bunch of carbons and hydrogens put together, also known as a hydrocarbon. We burn hydrocarbons for energy in our car. Gas, oil, are hydrocarbons. Fat is a hydrocarbon. Okay, all of these bonds can be broken and energy is released. We'll come back to that later on this year when we talk about cell respiration. There are two basic kinds of fat. Saturated fat is animal fat, solid at room temperature. Unsaturated fat is plant, let me erase the ink there, plant oils. Those are liquid at room temperature. Those are two examples of fats. There are others. Cholesterol is an example of a fat. There's trans fatty acids and things like that, which we'll talk about when we talk about nutrition and digestion. The fourth kind is nucleic acid. And you probably recognize that right away. It's used for the genetic code. It's made of chains of things called nucleotides. In this class, this is not a very important discussion, so we're not going to take very much time with this at all. And some examples of nucleic acids are DNA and RNA. They're not really used to, they're not, we find DNA and RNA in the nucleus of an atom. That is it for organic compounds.